Okay, so we're in Parsha Toldot, and really it's the foundation for the whole understanding of genetical experience versus environmental psychology, or like genetic psychology versus environmental. So, and there's also many other things. Basically, we're learning about Yaakov and Esav in their mother womb, which is teaching us that basically there's all these powers that are coming with us into the world, and we need to figure out a way to run our powers in the right manner, right? We need to be both spiritual and materialistic, and we need to learn to measure it and balance it out. So we'll read a few stories and see where it takes us. So there were two Hasidim, Reb Moshe, the son-in-law of Reb Zev Tzipas, and Yisrael Yosef, may their memory be blessed, who went to their rabbi's grave, a rebbe named the Rebbe, the Admor of Strashale. I never heard of his name until today, actually, I must admit. When they passed by by the city Kapost, not too far from Strashale, they stopped for some, I don't know, errands or whatever to rest. And while they're standing there, a simple man comes to them, and he's wearing shorts and a red belt, and he's asking where they're going to. And they said to him, to Strashalen. So he says to them, please take me to your Rebbe's grave also with you. And Reb Moshe, one of them, was like, why are you interested in our Rebbe? You don't look like anybody who's interested in Rebbes. And did you even know him? And the man said, why do I want to go to his grave? Because he literally revived my soul. And he saved me from death. And he took me out from the depth of the klipot, the depth of, how do you say klipot? Like the spiritual, the covering, the unholiness, the depth of unholiness. But you are young people. Why are you going to your Rebbe's grave? You must have not known him, because he already died quite a few years ago. And when they heard the story, when they heard his introduction, they were like, okay, you got to tell us the story. Now we really have to hear what your story is all about. And he wouldn't, and they nagged him until he did. And finally he said, they said to him, we're not leaving you alone until you tell us the story. What's your connection to the Rebbe? So when the men saw that they were so persistent, he said to himself and to them, well, maybe then the Kadosh Baruch Hu really wants me to tell you the story, and it's time for my story to come to become popular, even though I've never told it until now. So he says, when I was young, when I was getting married, I was living at my father-in-law in a place close next to Shkalov. And my father-in-law rented this little kreichma, this little inn or bar, whatever it used to be like. They used to call it a kreichma. And this place was completely neglected for 8 years. And when we were going to go in there, they did all kinds of like spiritual rituals, which we called skulot, like the old lady said. And we got dark cats in there, black cats in there, and like whatever, like, I don't know, witchies kind of stuff.
Like witchcraft type?
Yeah. And
this is him and his father-in-law before they bought the place.
Before they got in there to start their stuff there, yeah. And a little far from the house, there was an old tenant, which was considered not a whole tenant. Sorry, an old like a cattle place. A barn. Thank you, a barn. And they considered that barn to be tameh. So everybody were afraid, like, to be impure. So everybody were afraid to even pass by it, even in daylight. And I was in Yodea Sefer. I was knowing books. I was a knowledgeable person, and I wasn't doing business at all. But one day, my father-in-law wasn't home all week, and neither he was on Shabbat. And at the end of that Shabbat, I was smoking my pipe, and I went to take a walk until I passed by that barn. And suddenly, this black, big dog started barking at me and started circling me and barking at me like crazy. And then it ran back into the barn. And I got really scared, and I ran for my life, and I ran into the house. And there, the family gave me all kinds of tea and herbs to take away my anxiety, and until I fell asleep. When I fell asleep, I saw in my dream those two people come to me, but it felt very, very real. One of them was a German, dressed in royal clothes, and the other one looked like a cripple without a leg, and they were kind of holding him. And they brought me, they were holding me, and they brought me to a place where there was a big, scary soldier standing. And in my imagination or in my dream, they both looked like kings, each one of them at the head of his own army. And between the two of them, I saw the map of the whole world, basically. And they taught me geography. And and he says, believe me, it's been 20 years, and I still would have recognized them on the street and would have told you their names and would have told you the geography that they taught me that day. And this happened night after night. Sometimes they would light candles, and my wife would sit next to me, but nothing helped. When I would wake up from my sleep, my gown was completely wet that you could like squeeze it with my sweat. And in the day, I was so weak and so dysfunctionate. And in the following nights, those kings didn't come, but their servants came. And every night, they taught me another kind of something. Once they taught me how to ride a horse. Once they taught me how to pile up a truck. Once they taught me how to shoot with a rainbow, with a bow and arrow. Yeah, and if I didn't do it well, they would hit the hell out of me. And all this gulat that I did didn't help me. And when I tried to turn to all kinds of witchcrafts, it didn't help me either. And months have passed, and I already got used to it, and I even was enjoying my night work, and I was doing pretty well. But during the day, I was completely out of it. I was getting weaker and weaker and sicker. My father-in-law and my father were very simple men. They never went to Rebbe's. But when they saw how weak I was and how my all energy was taken out of me, they said to me, listen, there's this Rebbe around the corner here. Why don't you go and see him? This Drashel Rebbe. And it was only like 20 miles away, and I went to see him. It was kind of towards sunset, and I fell asleep, and I slept in the carriage. And when I was sleeping, all of a sudden, it was like the first time I wasn't dreaming those awful dreams, nightmares anymore. And so I was like, okay, maybe the traveling is helping me sleep better. So I don't need to go to the Rebbe anymore. So I turned the horse around and ran back home. And I wanted to go back to my father and say to him that everything is okay now. But the second night, it came back again. And then I realized that something is happening here. Obviously, uh, there was one night that it didn't happen, and then the next night it happened again. And I realized that if something is happening again, then they must be spiritually afraid from the Strashela Rebbe. So now they are not so afraid anymore. So I need to go to the Strashela Rebbe again. So on the day that I got to the Strashela Rebbe, all the Hasidim and the big rabbis were in the big house of the Rebbe. And Rabbi Avram Shainis and of Shaklov and Rabbi Drorna and others. And they were waiting for the Rebbe to come out of his room. In the meantime, I poured my heart out to the Rebbe's servant. His name was Rabbi Bear. And I also gave him a gift. So he let me in sooner into the Rebbe's room. And when I walked in, the Rebbe was just taking off his Rabbeinu Tam tefillin. And I was waiting. And when he finished smoking, I went over to him. And he gave me his loving eyes. And then he said, "What are you looking for?" And I told him everything. And when I finished, I picked up my eyes and I saw that his face was burning like a fire. And he dropped his pipe and got up from his chair and started running back and forth in the room. And like scrubbing his head, like trying to think, and screaming to himself, how does a pagam, like a defect, is coming to a soul? And he's running around the house screaming again and again, how does a defect come to a soul? How is a defect coming to a soul? Like, how's the soul being defected? So, and when I saw how much sorrow he was, I started crying too. And there was no one in the room except for both of us. And I saw that he was scrubbing his head so much that in a minute his forehead was going to spread, like going to get bloody. And he was walking around like that for very long minutes. And then he walked over to me and he said to me, "Do you say Shema Israel?" And I said, "Yes." And he says to me, "Do you understand what it means?" And and then he said to me, in such a simple manner, the word one. What is the word one? Do you really understand that there is only one God in the world? Do you really relate to that when you say Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad? Do you really understand that there's only one? There's only Hashem in the world. There's no other reality except for Hashem's reality. And I remember those seconds, like they're still engraved in my heart so deep, and as if I heard it just yesterday. And then he gave me all kinds of spiritual skulot that I should do, which I still do until today, but I don't tell about them to anybody. And he also told me to read from a particular book. And he said, just repeat what I told you today over and over to yourself again and again, so that you remember that there's only one, there's only Hashem in the world, there's nothing but Hashem in the world. And also, when those entities are going to come into your dreams, tell them those words. Tell them the Rebbe said that if you harass me, you will pay in heaven. And just keep saying that to them. Keep saying to yourself, there's only Hashem in the world, and keep saying to them, if you harass me, you will pay in heaven. And then he consoled me and he hugged me and he said, "Don't worry anymore. It's all going to be good." And it was already a long time. And the Hasidim and the rabbis outside were wondering what's taking so long. And the Rebbe felt that it was taking too long. And he opened the door and asked everybody to leave. And everybody were really surprised. Who is this simple man that the Rebbe is spending hours with? And when I left the room, everybody were asking me, but of course I didn't say anything. And when I came home, I said, I did all that the Rebbe said. And at night, I read Ein Yaakov, which the Rebbe told me to read. And when I fell asleep, I saw these men come to me again, not the messengers, the same kings, so to speak. They were standing afar and they were showing me that I should come with them. But I told them, the Rebbe said, you shouldn't harass me. And the German guy, who always looked like a nice guy, right away just disappeared. And the other guy who was missing a leg, the invalid, was screaming, who's that rabbi who thinks that I should listen to him? And I said to him again, the Rebbe said you should not harass me or you will pay in heaven. And he was getting like more angry and more angry. And I just kept saying, the Rebbe said that if you harass me, you will pay in heaven. And he was getting angrier and angrier. And I was repeating those words again and again until he finally banged on the walls and screamed and like whatever and made all this noise and disappeared and ran away. So the reason that we're telling this story today is that it's the Yort side of Reb Aaron of Strashela. And also because usually we're aware of the concept of Pidyon Shvuim, of redeeming the hostages, the captives, right? Which is very relevant to our times. But we're less aware of the idea of redeeming the spiritual hostages, the demons, our psychological demons. And sometimes we need help of a very strong spiritual, a very strongly spiritually wired person like the Rebbe of Strashela to help us redeem our soul from those spiritual entities who are holding us captives. So, on the first look, this story seems like a little bit weird with all these witchcraft and whatever. It's hard for us to accept those kinds of terms in our world. Um, but all of us can relate to the psychological level of understanding that we're listening to we all know that we have a bad voice and a good voice inside our heads, not in the psychiatric level, but in the plain psychological level, that we have a voice that is telling us to do things like staying up late at night on Facebook or whatever, right? Or going into worse addictions or whatever it is, like not sleeping well, not eating well, overeating or undereating or whatever it is that, we're doing in life that is wrong. And we're calling that guy or that um, entity in Judaism is called Melech Zaken Uksil. Like a Melech Zaken Uksil, an old king, an old stupid king. Ksil is stupid.
How do you spell it?
Kaf Samech Yud Lamed. Yeah. So we all have that stupid king inside of us versus the Midat Malchut, the sphere of Malchut of the tree of life, that reminds us to bring the Shekhinah into the lowest realms of our reality. We have this other Melech, which is a stupid old king, which is as old and stupid sometimes as we may get, right? In the moments that we don't listen to our proper voice, right? And on the other hand, we want to connect to our Malchut, which is our Sfirat that allows the Shekhinah into the lowest realms of our reality. So we want to ask ourselves also, like how do we basically, like, okay, so today there's a lot of discussion of how much are we addicted to things because it's biologically, genetically inscribed in us, and how much it's in our own spiritual powers to redeem ourselves from all the addictiveness, from all the unhealthy behavior that we develop and embrace into our lives. And so you can look at it on a spiritual level, like something was enforced on me, or like we're learning from Yosef in the parsha of Yosef, right, of the dreams, that there are dreams that you should listen to and there are dreams that you shouldn't listen to, right? And on one level, maybe we can look for a spiritual figure who will help us get rid of all kinds of problems that we have. On the other, whether they're biological or spiritual or emotional. On the other hand, we can look into ourselves and say, what is the stupid voice that I'm listening to? And what is the healthy voice that I want to listen to? Or what is the healthy voice that I want to bring into my consciousness, and heal myself from all those things that are. So that's the Yaakov and Esav that is in us. The Yaakov is the wise voice. And the Esav, without getting into our own morning discussion, is the less healthy voice. And we want to raise up the Yaakov voice inside of us, the one that does know how to read a book, the one that does know how to pray, the one that does know how to not act out of pure impulse and instinct. Whether we get it from the pshat or whether we get it from the drash, it doesn't matter so much, because in the bottom line, Asaph is the impulsive guy, and Asaph is the guy who wants the soup, and Asaph is the guy who is into the killing. So regardless of what his reasons are, whether they're more legitimate or less legitimate, it's not so much important. It still exists within us. The impulsiveness, the craving of the soup versus, or the craving of working an extra hour and becoming workaholic versus taking another hour off and sitting and learning Torah before I fall asleep at the end of the day. Whatever it is, like to balance it out, that Yaakov and Esav inside us.
That was nice.
So did the guys take him to the cemetery with him afterwards, or?
I bet they did. Yeah.